My God, we could not be more backwards with it. Anal secretions from a beaver's anal sac is actually a flavouring.
Imagine sitting at the bar watching your toe get drunk by someone else.
The only person who has the authority to make you feel a certain way is yourself. And then we turn the notch all the fucking way up. So, anything's possible.
Why wasn't that mentioned in the weirdest drinks you've seen? Hi, and welcome to the Session Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Crompton, co-founder of Session Spirit by Spirit of Bermondsey. I'm pleased today to welcome Aidy Smith to the studio. So Aidy has been taking the drinks industry by storm with his Amazon TV show, The Three Drinkers, his radio show, Thirsty Thursday, and his involvement in wider charitable and ambassadors for a number of different causes across a number of different platforms. So Aidy, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me.
How are you doing today? I know you had a bit of trouble getting in today, didn't you?
Do you know what? Nothing's ever easy. You attempt to get somewhere on time, and there's always something standing in your way. Today it was signal delays and maintenance on all transport lines within London, and the only one that's working decided to be a drama queen.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to get a taste of my own medicine for once.
So today we're going to delve into Aidy's entrance into the industry and your journey so far. We'll learn a bit more about you personally and to kind of get beneath the skull or the skin of you, if you will. And we'll chat a bit more about sort of neurodiversity and how two different industries which you sit between are handling those. Great. So let's jump in.
Let's do it.
Cool. So you've been a bit of a Tasmanian devil recently, I think, just kind of whirring around and taking on so many new projects across different platforms, different formats. You know, I sat down yesterday thinking, right, how on earth am I going to introduce Aidy? Where do I even start? Because you have so much going on. So why don't you tell me, or tell the listeners sort of, you know, a bit more about you? How would you describe yourself and where you sit and what you do?
Okay. Wow. Even me trying to do this is difficult. So I guess I do two things mainly. I'm a TV presenter, broadcaster, and journalist within drinks. So I've got my drinks hat, which sits on one side. So within that, I like to talk to everyday people out there in the world and just help them find a love for what is in their glass. You know, I'm constantly asked, Aidy, what is a good drink? And my simple answer is, a good drink is what you enjoy drinking. Everyone's taste is subjective. Everyone loves something different. And there is no one person out there who has the authority to say, this is great and this is terrible. It's all about the person. And our duty is simply to help people find something they can fall in love with. It's as simple as that. So I do that through TV, through radio, through writing for various magazines, newspapers, online publications. My other hat is very much about looking at neurodiversity. So I am the only TV presenter in the UK with Tourette Syndrome, one of about 5 in the USA, and I've been working a lot with various different charities to debunk the stigmas around neurodiversity. I'm diagnosed with ADHD. I'm pretty sure as hell I've got dyspraxia and dyslexia, not yet diagnosed, but we'll see what happens within the next year. And I joined various charities like the ADHD Foundation and Neurodiversity Charity, which is the UK's largest neurodiversity charity. And I work with the Tourette Association, which is the world's largest Tourette Syndrome charity, as their global ambassador. So essentially what I'm trying to do on that front is get out to the world and talk to them about neurodiversity, bring it down to a very simple level and allow people to see the actuality of what neurodiversity is, but most importantly, what it isn't. Address the stigmas, move away from the misrepresentations, and allow people to live a life of fulfillment just like everyone else on the planet, regardless what they're going through.
And when do you sleep?
I don't. No, I try and get... Sleep is very important. And if there's one piece of advice that I could give to everyone, it would be sleep is very important. And the one thing that you should invest in is good quality bed sheets. Like, spend more than you usually would. Don't be cheap on it. Save up, because your sleep is paramount to your health. And if you don't have at least 6 to 8 hours sleep every single night, you will die early. It's proven. Like, you will die prematurely.
How do you balance then alcohol intake and sleep? Because obviously alcohol will affect your sleep.
Yep. So I only drink Friday and Saturday. Like, from an entertainment and from a casual perspective, I only drink Friday and Saturday. I do my job during the week where I'll taste alcohol and I'll spit it out if I have to based on what's going on. But from a leisure perspective, I really do limit it. And I always say quality over quantity. In this country, we do have a problem with binge drinking. People do abuse alcohol. People drink more than they should. They don't understand what's in their glass. They tank it back because it's less about appreciating what's in the glass and more about the feeling of being drunk. And I think that's one thing that in this country we really do need to address, because people can still have a great experience, chat with their friends, and enjoy and appreciate what they are drinking versus just getting absolutely shit-faced.
You know what, I think it's a really good point, and it's something that, not to try and, upsell what we do, but it's an area which we're trying to focus on too. And the industry now is shifting towards a bit more moderation, a bit more sessionable drinking. So where do you think that fits in?
I think it's huge. And I mean, yes, you've got people in the industry who are the naysayers, or you've got people who are out there who you talk about something low alcohol and no alcohol, and they say, oh, I'm not drinking that unless it's at least percent ABV. It's not going in my glass. But in reality, we're all looking after ourselves a bit better based on what we've been through over the past few years. And I think that we're now paying attention to what we put in our body a lot more. And I think in the grand scheme of things, non-alcohol, low alcohol, and session elements and drinks are continuing to evolve. 10 years ago, they were awful. They tasted like shit. But now we've seen so much progression. And I can't remember the exact percentage, but I think it's been like a 3,000% increase in non-alcoholic and low alcohol beverages between 2021 and 2022. So the 2022 to 2023 and 23 to 24 increase is going to be exponentially larger. What we're finding now is that a lot of these products are picking up loads of awards. And for the most part, with a lot of different, beers, for example, right now, you can't even tell the difference between alcohol and non-alcohol versions.
Yeah, no,
so
definitely.
The quality element, and I'll always go back to that, quality, quality, quality. If you can get something quality forward, which tastes great, and it achieves an aim, which in this case is lower alcohol, fantastic. Because at the end of the day, what we want to put in our glasses is something that we actually enjoy.
It goes back to your first point then. That's what drinking is all about. It doesn't matter if it's this strength or that taste or mix in this way. It's all about what you enjoy, what's right for you at that time.
Yeah. And I mean, people have to think about alcohol as a form of art, right? So let's take wine or spirits, for example. Okay. So you've got a blank canvas. I want you to imagine this blank canvas, a white blank canvas. Now I want you to imagine the colors. So you've got red, green, blue, brown, grey, black, whatever it might be. So that is your grape, that is your rice, that is your grain, that is your apples, that is whatever the raw ingredient is that is going to make up this spirit or this wine. Now you've got the apparatus that you use. So you've got a paintbrush, you've got chalk, felt tip pen, pencil, all these different things. So that's the method that you use. Is that the distillation process? Is that the oak barrels? Is that the press that you use? Is that the malolactic fermentation or yeast to get like really geeky? All that stuff makes those colors come alive because it's the method you use. And what you have at the end of that is a painting or a bottle of wine or a spirit. And some people think it's the worst thing they've ever seen in their life.
Yeah.
And some people think it is the best thing, the most emotional, incredible thing they've ever seen in their life. And that's the whole point. Alcohol is meant to be subjective. We're not all meant to love something. We're not all meant to hate something. Some will, some won't. But that's the beauty of it. That's where the discussion comes from. So I love to tell people it's just like a painting and the process that you go through when you create that piece of art.
That might be the best description of alcohol I've ever heard in my life. Because it made sense on every single level. You captured the product, the reason to drink it, the type of people who might want to drink it, and how it's appreciated in different ways. And of course, with art, your love for art can change and shift as well as you get older and experience new things, and you can kind of shift into new areas. So it's a really, really good metaphor. I love that.
Honestly, I love it. And I think what I need to start doing now is taking famous paintings and turning them into cocktail recipes. What would Mona Lisa be? A Jägermeister base?
You absolutely should do that.
I should.
Because they do that in wine tasting as well. I've seen somewhere there's a wine bar in Southwark, and I really wish I knew the name of it because I can then give them a shout out. And if I do find it, I'll put it in the link below. But what they do is they do a wine tasting and a gallery at the same time, and they pair the artist and where they come from and where it was produced with the grape.
Amazing.
So they can talk about the grape and the type of wine and how it relates to the artwork.
That's genius. That's genius because, again, it bridges those two worlds together. And there's so much discomfort when it comes to wine because for years and years and, centuries, it's been this really uppity, upper class, almost snobby thing. And it's a class of elitist people who talk about it. It's a class of people who very much think that their way is the best way. And so a lot of people have zero confidence. They walk into the store and they're like, oh God, I don't want to be the one to choose the wine. Or when the wine menu's put in front of them, they start to go clammy and sweat because they're so petrified about choosing the wrong thing. And it shouldn't be like that. And so, I guess that's why I do what I do. It's to help people find that confidence in a non-pretentious way. Like, it's okay to make mistakes. It's all right to go out there and discover things. When you go to a restaurant, don't be afraid to speak to the sommelier. Don't be afraid to say, this is how much money I have to spend. This is what we're eating, and this is what I like in my wine. So rather than just sending them off to go, have some guesswork, say to them, I like these, big wines that tend to have a big kick to them. They got, I don't know, maybe blackberry or chocolate or raspberry and flavors like that. And your sommelier is going to think, right, okay, what have I got from a particular country, a particular grape variety? They go off, they come back, they give it to you. If you don't like what they've picked out, just be honest with them and say, excuse me, I don't mean to be ungrateful or awkward. I was really hoping for this, but what I'm tasting seems to be more this. Is there any chance we could have something else? And 9 times out of 10, they're going to say, do you know what? Yeah, absolutely. Let me go find something. Now, the second bottle gets more tricky. So you probably don't want to send that back. But, don't be afraid to go out there and try and guide them into what you're looking for and navigate that journey, because it's not as scary or daunting as everyone thinks it is.
Yeah, and they're there to help, aren't they? They're there to help you choose the right wine. It's almost like going into a taxi and then saying, where to? And you go, oh, I don't know. They'll be like, well, come on, tell me where you want to go, and I'll get you there. With a sommelier, it's what do you like, what are you after, and I'll get it for you. I'll help you achieve that experience. Yeah. So they're there for a reason. They're there for you. They're there to help you enhance your meal. So yeah, use them.
Love it, love it. So much truth.
So your journey into the world of drinks has been a very, very unique one, and not one that I've seen carved by anyone else. So I was playing a few videos from yourself yesterday around how you've got into the industry, and I'm not even going to try and do it justice because it's your story, right? So I'd love to hear you tell your story of how you've got into the industry and how you've got to where you are now.
My Lord, how long do we have? So I'm going to tell you the long, short version of this. So essentially, when I was a kid and I was 7 years old, I had a TV show. It was on ITV. I was the main actor. My co-presenter was a guy who played Neville Longbottom in Harry Potter. So I worked really hard. I worked my ass off to get to this point. And about 6 months after the second series had started filming, the tics from my Tourette Syndrome started emerging. And at that point, because the tics were pretty wild, I was cancelled. So agent dropped me, acting school dropped me, TV show dropped me. That career that I worked years to get had just gone. Fast forward, over 10 years, and I won't go into the minute details of during that time, but I was basically labeled as this failure, this kid with Tourette's who'd never be able to achieve anything. I remember talking to my placement officer about going to university, and I said, I want to go to Cambridge. And he literally laughed in my face. And then he had to compose himself because the thought of this Tourette kid going to university was just so beyond him. I went to university. I went to Lancaster University. I fell in love with it. It was both my choices. I did a great job there. And I'd always had this dream growing up that I wanted to work in America. It was a huge thing that I'd always wanted to do. I went on a school trip when I was 15. I begged my dad if I could go on it. It was a politics trip. I didn't even study politics, but I begged them to let me go on it, and I fell in love. So when I was at university, we had a placement year. And I remember, again, going to the placement office and saying, I want to go to America. And they went, don't be ridiculous. You've got a disability. It's America. They're never going to pay for someone with a disability to go on a visa over there and work. Just be realistic with yourself. Maybe take a year out. Maybe just focus on yourself. Don't even get a job. And I just, whenever I've had this, this situation where someone said to me, you can't do something, I've always turned it around and thought, hell no. I'm going to do it. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to make it happen and I'll persevere. Yeah. So I sent 6,600 emails to American companies to get a job over there for my placement year. And I got job offers because I persevered. So I ended up going out there and working at a graphic design agency as their marketing intern. My journey over there took about 45 hours. The first plane was cancelled. The second plane was delayed. Oh my God, right? I get off the plane and I have this missed call and a voicemail. I'm like, what is this? So I pick it up and I listen. And it's the placement office at the university saying, oh, hi, we forgot to tell you there's a networking event for the university happening tonight. You have to go. We've not done one in 6 years. I'm like, oh my God. So I get my suitcase. I pull out my crumpled suit, which is too big for me because I'm a little intern. I put it on and I go to the Palomar Hotel in San Francisco. I'm on the lift on the way up. I'm 20 years old and it suddenly dawns on me, oh shit. I can't drink alcohol here. Now I've got to go to a networking event. So I open these big grand doors and this guy immediately locks eye contact with me, walks up and he goes, hi, I'm Steve, shakes my hand. You need a glass of wine, grabs one and thrusts it into me. I'm like, this guy's a legend. Turns out Steve Smith, same last name as me, went to the same university 25 years before me, was in the same halls of residence, studied the same course and grew up 4 miles down the road from me. So Steve Smith and Rose Smith, his wife, who basically adopted me as their family, they have the only urban winery in Silicon Valley. So from the age of 20, I was making wine. I'd go out there every weekend and I would volunteer. I'd stir the lees, I'd do the bottling, I'd do the sealing, I'd do every part. So I was making wine at the age of 20 and I just fell in love with everything to do with the art of making drinks. That's where it all began.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's such a story as well. I'm glad it went the way it did, because at the very start I thought you're going to say when you were 7 years old and the show got cancelled, you turned to drink.
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, it happens, though. It happens. And I know that later on we'll talk a bit more about Tourette's and neurodiversity, but it's a serious issue. And, you know, even in the LGBTQIA plus world, alcohol abuse is rife. It is there. And we are a nation who do turn to alcohol abuse, which is why quality over quantity is so integral.
Well, let's talk about your more recent projects then, okay? So there's 3 I want to touch on, if we have time. The 3 drinkers on Amazon Prime. I mean, that must have felt incredible when you first got that across the line, right?
Yes, again, like that was a very interesting situation that happened there, because again, if you look at the conventional way of getting on TV, it requires a commissioner, it requires screening, it requires all these things, and no one was ever going to take some guy who was open about having Tourette's into a TV show, because we're looked at as a waste of production budget. We're looked at as a waste on editing because they feel like they'd have to constantly edit our ticks out. They'd have to redo takes the whole time. But when you want to do something, again, to my point, perseverance, you make it happen. So the only way to have gotten a TV show was to have made it ourselves. So every penny raised to create that TV show has been done by the 3 drinkers. We've gone out there, we've raised that money, and it was only after we kind of got the concept of the show together and proven ourselves that Amazon were like, oh yeah, cool, this looks great. So series 1 went up, then there was demand for part 2 of series 1, then there was demand for series 2, then there was demand for series 3, and that's the point we're at now. But it's interesting because a lot of people may assume that Amazon just kind of came to us and said, oh, hi, will you be in our TV show?
Yeah.
It wasn't that way around at all. This had to be funded. You know, I went out there and sold all of this, made the TV show, then got it out there. And it's done really well.
So you made the show and Amazon said, yes, we'll air that.
Yeah.
So all the editing, all the scripting, all the location choosing, all the, everything was done by you guys. And they said, yeah, we'll put it up and take the credit for it.
100%. I mean,
that's incredible.
You know that from a distribution standpoint, they're phenomenal. We've gotten out to 120 territories across the world, 30 languages. And as a result of that, I've been able to get the show on British Airways, Virgin Atlantic, Lufthansa, Iberia. So it's been seen by millions and millions of people across the world, which is phenomenal. Because, you take this little concept where 3 people sat down in a whiskey bar and decided that they wanted to do something on TV. And then you look at where it is now. But more than that, you look at the amount of people whose lives it has changed when it comes to their interaction with what is in their glass as well. And every day I'll get people reaching out saying, oh my gosh, I watched this episode and I went out and I bought this. I didn't think I liked this, but now I love it. And I've got my friends to try this and they didn't like it for these reasons, but now they love it because of these reasons. And it goes back to that passion. Yeah. If I can give someone a gift to find passion with what they're drinking, that's all I can hope for when it comes to the world of drinks.
And I think it goes back to your point you made earlier, which was every time I'm told, no, I can't do it, you just turn around and say, fuck you, I'm going to do it, watch me. And then it just flies.
Yeah, damn right. And it's the same to anyone out there in life. Like if you have an ambition or a goal or something you want to do and you are being held back by someone who doesn't believe in you, screw them and don't let them bring you down. The only person who has the authority to make you feel any way, any emotion is you yourself. So if you want to do something, go out there and do it. And use their neglect and their arming against you as a fuel to push even harder. And, you know, it's not about kind of proving someone wrong. The one thing you want to do is prove to yourself you are capable, but use everything within your arsenal to propel yourself even further. Any bit of emotion you can take is only going to set you further to achieve your goals.
Love that. Honestly, it's so good. And then, so also this year, you jumped away from behind the camera to behind the microphone, right? So you've now got your show, Thirsty Thursdays on BBC Radio London.
Yeah, so that's been fabulous. So, you know, I have a lot of passion for London. It is the epicenter of drinks in the world. It's the one place where alcohol, wine, spirits, non-alcohol, low alcohol, whatever it might be, starts in London, comes to London before it goes anywhere else in the world. It's a central hub. And we are so privileged to be able to live in a place where we get to discover so many things. And so off the back of that, this show talks about things going on in London. It's local London drinks, local London food, local restaurants, local happenings, local cocktail bars. And I do it with a guy called Aidy, who is a phenomenal human being. This man is one of the most caring, giving, hilarious people I've ever met. And he's the perfect person. So every Thursday, I'll go on a show with him. We'll do this 30-minute slot where we talk about all these things. And the banter is just unreal. Well, one thing that I love doing is it's BBC, right? So you've got to be like, you know, not just politically correct. You have to behave. You can't be naughty. You can't have innuendos. Oh my God, there's so many innuendos. So on the last show, again, local London company, they have this product that is, I kid you not, it's a banana that is frozen and then covered in chocolate. There's a white chocolate, milk chocolate, and dark chocolate.
It sounds unreal.
Right?
Actually.
So here I am giving Aidy a 6-inch chocolate banana, dark chocolate banana. And we're discussing how everyone is different because they're freshly picked. So I said, this one has a bit more girth to it and it's a bit longer. In fact, I think this is about 8.5 inches. And he's saying, oh, mine's small. It's about 5. It's a bit wonky too. You know? But we're doing it with such a deadpan face because we have to. But the audience know exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
Exactly what's going on. It's so funny. Like, honestly, when I come out, I actually have like pain because I'm having to withhold the laughter so much.
It's like being in school when you can't laugh.
Yes.
It makes everything 10 times funnier.
So true. I love Aidy, like with all my heart. He's such a legend. Oh God. So that's been fun. 1 p.m. every Thursday, BBC Radio London.
You also get involved as a speaker and a judge in a huge plethora of different charities and award ceremonies. Can you talk a bit more about that?
Yeah, so this is something that happened about 5 years ago, and I essentially hadn't really thought about doing anything with charity and anything along those lines. And 5 years ago, out of nowhere, my best friend in San Francisco, God rest his soul, just passed away. He just died one night. That was it. He was gone. And he was one of those giving people. His name was JP, one of the most giving people I'd ever met. He never asked for anything. He did so much for charity in San Francisco, raising money for LGBTQIA plus charities, for different AIDS foundations. And he raised millions throughout his time. But again, he never asked for anything in return. He was one of the most giving people. And when he died, I vouched that I needed to do some good. And I didn't know at the time what the hell it was, what I was going to do. But then it became obvious to me that at the time, it was Tourette's. I'd started building this TV show. I had a good platform. I had people following what I was doing, but I never publicly at this point really spoken about having Tourette's. So I thought, right, I'm going to do it. So I went out there. I started that advocacy journey with Tourette's to begin with. Now ADHD, all neurodiversity, all encompassing. And one of the most wholesome and beautiful things that I can say I've ever done in my life is getting involved in charities where I can see that it's actually making a difference to people's lives. Because the fact of the matter is, with neurodiversity, around 50% of people who have these conditions remain undiagnosed. And that's just what we know. So it's going to be even more than that. It's probably going to be about 75 to 80% of people. And the more awareness we build, the more understanding we put out there, the more people we reach, the more hearts we can heal, the more people we can help navigate their journey. But ultimately, most crucially, especially when it comes to Tourette's, 47% of people with Tourette's consider suicide. 47%. And when I was 15, I was one of them. That is what I'm trying to conquer. I don't want any little boy, little girl, or adult to ever have to think that the only way out of this life, because they don't know what's going on, because they're so petrified, is to end it all. We should not be in that position. And I will work as goddamn hard as I need to move us from that narrative into a positive light where people can embrace themselves and have passion for themselves, regardless of who they are, what's going on, what condition they have. They just embrace themselves so they belong. And that's the most crucial word, belong. Everyone needs to feel like they belong.
This summer saw a really beloved celebrity sort of showcase his tics and his Tourette syndrome in Lewis Capaldi, and it spurred a really, really heartwarming moment on stage when everyone started to sing the song for him, which I think pretty much pulled everyone's heartstrings. How big was that for awareness, and how did that affect you personally, and how did that make you feel?
It was huge. That was huge. That probably put us forward about 5 years, because when you get someone who has a following that big and that much incredible notoriety for what they do, and a message like that comes out, it begins to normalize. So when people saw that, they suddenly thought, hang on a minute, Tourette's isn't just swearing, because that's what historically people have always thought, that Tourette's is a swearing disease, swearing condition. That's what it's been labeled as. So when I saw Lewis up there and I watched the video for the first time, the first thing I did was burst into tears, because it was such a relief to know that so much awareness building had been done in that one moment.
Yeah.
And I also have so much passion and love for him, because he's going through a very difficult period of life right now. When we first begin to understand that we have Tourette and it's a part of our life and we're beginning to navigate it, it's incredibly daunting. You don't know who to turn to or who to talk to. Thankfully, he looks like he's taken the break that he needs to get back on track, and I truly hope he's doing that, because he needs to, for his own sake. And we're all, as a community, we are here for him should he ever need to talk to someone or figure out what this new life is. I'd say that in the days that happened after that, like my phone was ringing constantly. I was on TV, I was on radio, I was on podcasts. I was just literally, as a go-to known personality for having Tourette's, everyone was talking about this. So it was phenomenal from that standpoint. But at the same time, all these things are a double-edged sword. You put yourself out there, you make yourself vulnerable, you tell your deepest, darkest stories that most people would never even delve into. And it makes you an emotional, physical wreck, because, you can imagine going for a run for 24 hours constantly, right? And you are so physically tired. Imagine doing the same, but talking about things that are really personal to you for the same amount of time. You then become emotionally tired.
It's like therapy, right? It's like kind of doing therapy every time you talk about it. It's like self-therapy and getting it out there. And one session of therapy can make you feel tired and drained, but doing it, all week, you'd be a shell.
And now imagine that it's not a confidential conversation, because everything you're saying is going to be heard by every single person out there in the world, should they listen.
Which will intensify it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it was a fabulous moment for Tourette's. I'm so proud of Lewis. I'm so thankful that he had the courage to come forward and to say something. And I hope that other people who are in a similar position have the confidence to do the same, because again, they're not alone.
Yeah.
They're not alone. And off the back of that, I decided to make a documentary for Virgin Radio. So that was called Tourette's, The Truth Beyond the Tics. And within an hour documentary, I dove into, what is Tourette's? What's the reality of it? What are the hardships, the stigmas, the misconceptions? How it's just really fucked up how people are treated with Tourette's. But then beyond that, I went into the other side of it, talking about how remarkable and unstoppable we are, how we have this creative genius that is like no other. Because the persecution that we go through, the bullying we go through, the segregation we go through when we're younger, it changes us. So we have this emotional intelligence, this empathy, this cultural awareness that so few people have. And when we factor that into what we love doing, when we find something that we are really passionate about and we focus the excess energy from our tics into that, our tics stop, but our ability to surge in that one area is fullfold. So that's why you'll meet people with Tourette's, and over time you'll come to discover that some of the most successful people that we know have neurodiverse elements, have something like Tourette's or ADHD or anxiety or Asperger's, and for every hardship and every difficulty they've had, they've turned that around. And I think that's why I'm such a big believer of we can take two paths in life. When I was a little boy and that TV show was cancelled and my life was shit, and I used to sit in my room in the dark and just cry, I had two choices. I could either keep going down that path, start taking drugs, abuse alcohol, and basically slowly kill myself, or I could fight, go out there and prove the world wrong. And I chose choice two. And my hope is that everyone in that similar situation gets that little nugget of inspiration from someone to set them on journey too. And in doing so, on that journey, they inspire other people who inspire other people. And it's kind of like a pay it forward. And you don't just need to be neurodiverse for this to happen. You can be anyone going through any situation. You could have come out of a relationship. You could have just lost a parent. You could have, recently have been in a car crash and your life has changed or been impacted. You could have lost a job. Anything, just to give you that little bit of confidence to go change your life, because you can do it. If you put your mind to it, you can do it. But it has to start in the mind and the heart. If you bridge them together, anything is possible.
Great answer. I mean, I was going to ask you if you could share a few of the benefits that you found from having Tourette's and how that's impacted your life in a positive way. And you clearly have just shown that, tenfold. I think for me, one of the key takeaways from the Lewis Capaldi show was that hopefully it gives people who are struggling with whether it's Tourette's or any other symptom which might be causing them grief or anxiety, is that people will get behind you. And I imagine there's probably a feeling of I'm different, I'm separated. I think before you said about being segregated away from everyone else, but seeing the crowd just carry him, sing his song for him, that must have been really, really heavy.
Whew. I mean, yeah, because it's like for the first time, it was like the world was behind us.
Yeah.
And historically, I mean, Tourette's is the most joked about disability on the planet. It's the one that comedians think is the most humorous because they can shout a load of curse words, and swearing is funny when it comes to comedy. And it's the most mocked disability by the general public because they think they've just got a green card too. If someone swears, they'll say, "Oh, sorry, that's my Tourette's." And for people who have coprolalia, which is it's 9% of people with Tourette's have coprolalia, which is the element of swearing. Just
Right.
9%. Yet, it's stigmatized as Tourette's is a swearing disease or whatever.
There are a few documentaries, weren't there, on Channel 4, which basically just focused on those people with that type of Tourette's.
And I mean, that is one thing that we need to get away from. That's one thing that I'm working a lot on now. I want there to be more representation on TV, on radio, on every form of media, on social media, that moves away from the stigmatization of this small pool of people who have Tourette's. Yes, coprolalia is a real thing. When I was like 7 and 8, I had it. I used to tell my teacher, F you, with the actual words that I won't say on the podcast, but I used to actually say that, and I get sent out of the classroom all the time, even though they knew it was my Tourette's. But there was just, how do you deal with that?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we're navigating now. But my aim is to get more media out there that represents the holistic element of what Tourette's is versus this small pool, and to get rid of shows like The Undateables. I mean, for Christ's sake, when you put a bunch of people with disabilities on a show like that, you're looking at them like they're circus freak show acts. There's a couple of people with Tourette's who we know from the charitable elements that we've done who've been on that show, and they said it was the worst thing they ever did. Because now when they're walking down the street, people aren't laughing with you when you go on a show like that. They're laughing at you. And then when they see you on the street, they're laughing at you.
They're putting a target on their own back, really, aren't they?
Literally, yeah.
Which I imagine isn't mostly their choice.
No, it's not. Because I think, when someone comes to you and says, do you want to be on this TV show? They're probably thinking, oh, this is great. I can raise awareness for Tourette's and also my own profile. But sadly, certain producers and directors don't have your best interests at heart, which is why it's so important when these shows are created to have neurodiverse people behind the scenes to fact check, because there's been a couple of shows that have come out over the past few years that have had very, very wrong details in them and caused a hell of a lot more harm than good.
So that ties into my next question. How does the media industry and the drinks industry compare when looking after people or dealing with certain symptoms of Tourette's or wider mental health issues?
So, I mean, there's a vast difference. Like, the media industry has been forced and is being held accountable to make change. And don't get me wrong, there's still a hell of a lot of work that needs to be done. But I'd say that from an ethnicity standpoint and an LGBTQIA plus standpoint, it's beginning to get better representation. I'd say that from a disability diversity standpoint, there, and this is in the media world, there's still a hell of a long way to go, because disabilities are looked at as something is wrong. You have to have other needs. You need specialist equipment. You need something is needed to allow you to do your job properly. That's typically what it's looked at as. Whereas from an LGBTQIA standpoint or an ethnicity standpoint, you don't need specialist equipment. You are just as talented as everyone else. You know, you can do the same jobs. You are capable. And with disability elements, it's exactly the same. But there's just this one step back. People freak out because they think that, you know, they don't want the awkwardness. Look at it like this situation, right? If you're walking down the street and you see someone who's in a wheelchair, you will immediately look away so you don't have to make eye contact. And as humans, we do that. It's human nature. People do that because they don't want to be in a position of awkwardness where they feel they're offending that person or staring at that person, vice versa. But in actuality, the best thing we can possibly do is look at that person, just smile and nod. And I would love to create something called Nod to Acknowledge Day, where every single person walks down the street and just looks at one another and nods, regardless of who they are or what they're doing, to share the love. I've gone off on a little tangent there, but in sum, the media world is getting there because they are being held accountable to get there, because government backing, different countries, all these different things are going on. And in the media industry, it's not just one thing. There's so many different parts to it. So all these other fractional bodies are coming together and saying, you need to do something different. This is TV. Everyone watches TV. So you need to represent more people. On the drink side of things, my God, we could not be more backwards with it. We could not be at the polar opposite end. There is so much needed within drinks. And one thing that really gets me within drinks is even our own journalist pool. Like, the consumer journalists within drinks have done nothing to aid the diversity representation of ethnicities, LGBTQIA plus people, disabled people. And I'm going to be launching the world's first ever inclusivity incubator program for drinks writers or content creators. And I'll be really intrigued to see whether the drinks journalism world gets behind this and helps push it out so we can welcome a whole new world of faces into our collective pool of talent, or whether it will be fought against because they are so petrified of losing the jobs and the gigs that they have. I've always been someone who's tried to share my successes with other people. So when we launched the podcast that we had, 75% of people who came on that podcast had to be from an underrepresented or diverse background, because they're the stories I wanted to tell. Each TV show we've done, I've made sure that the main talent within that show has come from a diverse background. So with every season we've done, all the talent has to encompass a different ethnicity, different culture, LGBTQIA+, whatever it might be. And that is a rolling theme across everything I do. I recently joined Soho House. I sat on their board as looking after their DE&I initiatives. Same thing with their drinks. Every quarter, we're going to initiate a new diversity-led giving back to charity drink within the houses. So that, you know, there's always giving back. And I think that the drinks industry still has to learn that. I had a chat with Barry Brown Rudd literally just this past week. And, you know, a lot of companies in the drinks industry are the same. They say, we know that things need to be done, but we don't know what we need to do, and we're scared about doing the wrong thing. And I think that's the point that we're at right now within the drinks industry. People are petrified of what to do. They say they want to do it properly, therefore they do nothing. But on the other hand, I think that a lot of people also just genuinely couldn't give a shit because they don't need to. They come from a culture and a community in a certain country where money is wealth, wealth is power, and they want to hold on to that power. And why would they want to share that? So it's about getting to the people who do want to make a difference but don't know how. And it's about educating the people who couldn't care less to actually care. That's what we're fighting right now. And it's, you know, all hope is not lost. There are still some companies doing some great things, more in the spirit side of things. And we're seeing more companies emerge that are owned by diverse talent. And that's where the real beauty begins, because when more faces who look like other communities come forward and start their own businesses, people feel compelled and inspired to then create their own. But without that, they think, well, my face isn't represented there, so I'm never going to be taken seriously.
Needs to come top down.
Yeah, literally. I mean, when I started doing drinks tastings at the beginning, and I was, you know, I've always been out there. I've always been this kind of rebel. People can probably tell I'm gay from the clothes I wear, the way I talk, how confident I am in speaking about homosexuality. And, you know, when I tick and whatnot at tastings, it took years to even be acknowledged in a tasting room. And it was only young people who talked to you. Like all the old guard or the next generation couldn't care less. They had their own little cliques. They didn't really want you there. You know, the young people, why the young people here? And we need to change that mentality. Drinks should be a place where all are welcome, regardless of where you're from, who you are, what color your skin is, who you love, all these things, you know? It should be an open place.
Hey guys, just wanted to take a quick break from the podcast to let you know about our drinks brand, Session Spirit. We've created the perfect spirit that allows you to enjoy the best of both worlds. It's a 25% spirit made with London dry gin. Why did we create a sessionable spirit? Well, it allows you to reduce your hangovers and make a healthier choice while still enjoying an award-winning, full-tasting gin. It's also half the calories, vegan, gluten-free, and contains no carbs or sugars. Head over to www.sessionspirit.co.uk to grab your bottle and get £5 off with code PODCAST5. Okay, great. Let's get back to the pod. I want to jump into the quick fire. I've got a deeper dive here, but I don't think we can get much deeper than that.
Time to play deep dive.
So this is more around you and your experiences. So a few light ones, a few heavy ones, and we'll see where we go. Okay.
Hit me.
Okay. So quick fire questions. What's your favorite wind down drink on a Friday night or on a Thursday night if you do tend to have a wind down alcohol-free drink?
Crystal Head vodka martini with a rinse of sweet red vermouth and a lemon twist.
That is way more specific than I thought you were going to be. I thought you were like martini.
Yeah. You've got to have a good quality spirit in there. I would say, like, there's a lot of vodkas that burn. Stay the hell away from them. It's got to be creamy and it's got to be cold.
Okay, amazing. And what would you drink on a non-drinking day, if at all?
I've really been getting into more of the CBD kind of RTDs. So at the end of the night, I'll have something that's either very low alcohol or I'll have something that is no alcohol but in the form of a can, just to kind of experience something a little bit new, or just tonic water. Franklin & Sons, for example, I'll just sit down and have a Franklin & Sons tonic or mixer. They've got a pineapple and almond mixer that is amazing. They've got a rosemary and black olive mixer as well. You know, I think that's the thing. Again, you don't always have to have alcohol or some really heavy drink in order to enjoy what's in your glass. And we're finding more and more of these low intervention, lower alcohol, non-alcohol drinks that come out that are just as creative and inventive. There's a guy who owns a wine company called Wednesday's Domain, and he's got, you know, some of the best non-alcoholic wine equivalents that have come out, and the experience is there. It's in a beautiful wax-sealed bottle. Does it taste like wine? Absolutely not. Should it taste like wine? Absolutely not. It's not trying to replicate something it's not. It's just a fantastic drinking experience. I think that's one thing that is like really intriguing me about the future of this world as well. Like, do we continue to refer to these things as non-alcoholic spirits, or will they become just a drink in their own right, where if you just want a good drink, you can go out and buy whatever this is? But in the meantime, we have this familiarity element, which makes sense. You know, people say this is a non-alcoholic tequila, this is non-alcoholic whiskey, non-alcoholic rum, even though they taste nothing like those things.
Yeah.
And the only one that does is a non-alcoholic gin that I think Tanqueray launched that smelt just like a gin.
Yeah,
and that was like, okay,
botanicals in there. Yeah, well, we had Steph Ellswood on recently, who's launched Karoo's Drinks, and she's taken the approach of adding in nootropics and adaptogens to make it a bit more than just non-alcoholic.
Yeah.
Whatever you choose, and it's very strange because it's like, why would you want to replicate the very thing you're trying to remove?
Yeah.
Why not focus on adding new things and making it a new type of drink, a new category, and new benefits, rather than just taking things out, put new things in?
Do you know what? It'll be really interesting, won't it? Like, over the next 50 years and the progression of this industry, and we look at things like nootropics that are being put in now. In 50 years' time, are we going to have these drinks that allow us to hallucinate but safely? And like, you know, for example, take a drink where you just see butterflies flying in front of your face for like 10 seconds. I don't know. I know that's a very weird thing to say, but it's like with the way technology and how quickly things evolve, Like, where will we be in 50 years? I'm so intrigued.
Yeah, I think we'll unlock a whole new realm of mind bending and
Honestly,
alternative drinks.
I think that we'll have these all-encompassing sensory experiences where we'll put on something like a VR unit, you'll open a can of something, you'll drink it, and there will be smell, there will be taste, there will be senses and touch and all these things coming from this device or this room that you sit in. And it will be like, you know, you'll drink a chocolate milkshake and you'll fall into a vat of fresh chocolate milkshake and go for a swim. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Or even just drinking water, which you are then made to think it's a chocolate milkshake because of all the different senses and the smells. You'll just be drinking water and you'll think you're drinking anything else.
Heston Blumenthal did that once. He made a chocolate that was just pure liquid. It was pure transparent liquid like water, and it tasted just like chocolate, but he removed all the colour from it. And he had people lick wallpaper as well. What's he doing now?
What's the worst first date you've ever had?
Oh, gosh. Oh, my God. Right. I went out with this guy he was a model, and we went to a art museum, met up. He really didn't look like his pictures, but I was like, okay, whatever. Like, that's fine. I'll still get to know you. And he just, like, progressively throughout the date continued to say offensive things. Like, out of nowhere. And when I take someone out on a date, I'm quite a sweet person. I'm quite romantic. Like, I like to treat someone. You know, I like to say, oh, do you want a drink when we get there? Like, you know, can I hold this, that, and the other? I always open doors. I ask them questions about themselves. But I think it was the point where he said, what's wrong with you? Why do you keep doing that weird twitch? You probably don't have many friends. And I thought, okay, I'm done. So I just said to him, I'm going to walk you to this bridge across the road, and then I'm going home. And he was like, why? And he couldn't quite comprehend why. I just said, because you're really rude.
Yeah.
So I walked him across the bridge, and then I just left. And then that was it. I didn't speak to him again.
Yeah, no, I'm not surprised. Yeah.
But so that was one of the worst. I mean, there's others, but I won't go into
That's
this.
up. Yeah.
I think I have to retain some element of my personal life.
I think I know the answer to this question, but who is the kindest person you've ever worked with?
I mean, JP, like, hands down, you know, there's a lot of kind, amazing people who I've worked with over the years. But my best friend in San Francisco, when I went over there, he took me under his wing as his brother. He was from Guam. He used to call me Cheluhu. So Cheluhu in Guam means brother. And he like, in San Francisco, right, when you're a gay man in San Francisco, and he was like twice my age, this guy, like, when you go to a place like that, and I was a 21-year-old, like, young British twink, if you are twice the age of someone, you have this young British twink who's hanging around you all the time, you know, you could try take advantage of that. You could, you know, try flirt with them or do whatever. Not once did he ever do that. I was like a little brother to him, and he looked after me so much. He gave me the confidence to come out. He gave me the confidence to fight for jobs over there. He gave me the confidence to start getting more into the LGBTQIA plus world. And upon his passing, he gave me the confidence to do the thing that I am now have the most pride to have ever done, which is talk about Tourette's, talk about my people, and help them find their own sense of pride too. So I have so much love to him, and his picture's in my wallet. I look at it nearly every day. I think about him all the time. Whenever a milestone happens, I sit down, have a little moment, and I cry, thinking about if he was here, like, what would he have thought in that moment? Like, I'm getting a bit emotional now even thinking about it. But I miss him a lot. I miss him a lot because he meant and still means an awful lot to me, and he would have continued to have changed the world. I know he would have. He is, even now, even though he's not here, his memory lives on, you know. JP.
What's the weirdest drink product you've seen before?
Oh Christ! I mean, I've come across a lot. Like, yeah, if you watch some of my social media videos, you'll have seen that I've come across quite a lot. I mean, two come to mind. There is one that is a spirit that is literally made from the secretions of a beaver's anal sac.
That's the one that I saw.
There you go.
That's why I've asked.
That's one. But in hindsight, it's actually not that weird, because in America, anal secretions from a beaver's anal sac is actually a flavoring that has been approved by the FDA. So it has a vanilla raspberry flavor to it, and they used to use that in certain foods. So, people...
I want to know, right, who's the first person to try that? Because I always think, okay, milk from a cow. Okay, someone had to try that first. Fine, I get it. It kind of makes sense. Who was the first guy to go, I'm going to try this beaver's anal gland?
Oh, my Lord. I don't think we want to know, to be quite honest with you. They're probably in prison now for other things, but...
Licking wallpaper, probably.
Right, there you go. So that's one. And the other one's probably the zombie toe cocktail in Canada. So it's right by a mountain range, and it's at this particular hotel in this little town. And a lot of people go to this mountain range. A lot of people walk up there, but they come back with toes missing because they have frostbite, because a lot of people get like stuck up there. And so if you do end up having a toe removed, you have the option to donate it to the local hotel and the local bar. And it's a shot of whiskey. They put a frostbitten frozen toe in it, and you shot the whiskey and the toe touches your lips. You're not allowed to lick it or touch it or bite it. And if you do, you get fined $1,000 on the spot.
To who? To the hotel or to the owner?
Hotel, yeah.
Not the owner?
You've got to sign a contract before you have it, like a legally binding contract to say that you won't do these things. But over time, some people have actually begun to steal the toes. So they would put the toes in their bags and run off with them. So they had a shortage of frostbitten toes at one point. So if anyone out there has a frostbitten toe, you want to donate it to this bar. But yeah, the frostbitten toe, that was an odd one. I mean, there's so many.
I did not think you were going to outperform the anal gland. I really thought, right, nailed on here, nailed on. There's too many questions to even begin, man. Like, first of all, losing a toe is annoying, to say the least, right? Imagine sitting at the bar watching your toe get drunk by someone else.
I mean, at least put it to good use. Otherwise, you'd just put it in the bin, wouldn't you?
At least get the grand if they nibble your toenails.
Oh, there should be commissions.
There should be a commission.
There should be a commission. Like, you should get, a cut of that every time.
You're benefiting off my toe.
Yeah, kiss my toe, give me $100.
Literally, right? That's fucking weird.
I'll tell you what else is weird. I recently started this new format, the social media format called Can It Cocktail.
Right.
And so within this, I get the most obscure random foods, and I have to turn them into a cocktail.
Yeah.
So, we start on more simplistic things like bacon. Cool. You can take the bacon fat. You can make an old-fashioned with it. Fantastic.
I saw your bacon bourbon.
There you go. Bacon bourbon. And then we up the game a little bit. Maybe give me a chocolate cake. I'll make a nice chocolate milkshake, espresso martini kind of thing going on there.
More normal.
There you go. Right. And then we turn the notch all the fucking way up. And I get into the studio and they reveal the item of the day that I have to turn into a cocktail, and it's a Big Mac. So I'm like, what the hell do I do with this? But then it dawns on me. A Big Mac, savory, Bloody Mary, but I don't want to be, typical and just do what everyone else has done with a Bloody Mary. So I decide to make a martini, but like a Bloody Mary themed Big Mac martini.
Mm-hmm.
So you scrape off all of the burger sauce, the lettuce, the pickle, the onion. You blend that with a high quality vodka, then you put it in the freezer. Now you got a fat wash. So after 24 hours, you remove the fat and you've got your infused vodka. So your Big Mac sauce infused vodka. Next thing we do is take tomatoes, crush them, put them in a muslin cloth. Tomato water drips through. That's your vermouth equivalent. So now you've got your base, you've got your vermouth. All you need now is a little bit of kind of spice around the edge. So you get some sriracha, you get a little bit of Worcestershire sauce. Bang that into a mixing glass, stir for about 60 to 80 seconds to get it to the optimum temperature. Then pour into a glass and garnish. Well, rim it with the seeds from the bun first.
Naturally.
Got to do that. The only piece of like the puzzle that I didn't want to use in the cocktail was the meat patty, because you never know how that's going to go. So what you do there is you get a big ass cube of ice and you put the meat patty in the middle of it. So you put that in your martini glass, you put the liquid around it. So you're just looking at this meat patty, this chunk of meat and a big wedge of ice that you can't taste.
Yeah.
And then this beautiful Bloody Mary themed martini. It was delicious.
Make me one promise.
What?
You'll never ever make a 4-star martini.
Oh.
Because I did not know. I don't want to know what goes into that.
Well, you know that there was a beer made with a woman's vagina yeast. So anything's possible.
Why wasn't that mentioned in the weirdest drinks you've seen?
Yeah, there was.
Where can I buy some?
It's called Yona beer. I think she was like, where's she from? It was somewhere in Eastern Europe, and she decided to create a beer using her vagina yeast. I don't think it's on sale anymore.
I think that's probably a good thing. Or someone just bought her out.
Yeah.
Her ex-husband just bought her out. Do you have any controversial beliefs?
Ooh, do I have any controversial beliefs? I mean,
Any theories?
I think that, I literally just posted something about this yesterday. I think that the pyramids were built by aliens. I think that if you look at the hieroglyphics and if you look at where all the pyramids are in the world, they are like big runways, and the hieroglyphics show these like spacecraft, these aircraft, almost looking like helicopters. And it's like, how would you explain that? So I think that the pyramids were technological advancements which aliens helped us with. So that's one belief.
They're all pointing like true north, aren't they, as well?
Yeah. Come on, you can't have pyramids all around the world that are all pointing true north, that all have helicopters, that are all like massive beacons. So when aliens came to Earth, it was like, oh, that's where the airport is over there. You know, I think,
duty free.
you know what I mean? But someone did bring something to my attention yesterday in a comment that I found fascinating. And they said, imagine this. Imagine.
We're getting deeper now.
We're going a bit deeper. They said, imagine, right, that a whole community of people live out there in the world doing these things. So right now we have cars, we have skyscrapers, we have planes, all these things, right? Now imagine that we basically kill ourselves. We're extinct. We fucked up the world. Oops, we've done it again. You know, we've made ourselves extinct through carbon emissions and all this, right?
I know where you're going. I made the same point to a friend recently.
Right?
Yeah.
So imagine that. Now imagine there's a population of people hidden in the woods in the Amazon or in a cave. And just a small group of people, tiny group of people, but they've lived there for hundreds of years and they know no different. And one day, once the rest of the world is dead, they emerge from where they've lived because they've not been affected. And they come out into the world and they see aeroplanes and cars and all these things. And they think, well, this couldn't have possibly been made by mankind. It must have been some alien species because we couldn't have possibly have made this. And now I'm thinking, wow, could that be the pyramids? Maybe we did have technological advancements of different kinds, but then the world went extinct. We were living in a hole at the time, but then we emerged and then we see these pyramids and we're like, oh, we could never have done that. But maybe we could. Cue the X-Files theme.
Yeah, man. 'Cause I mean, like, the Aztecs did it before, didn't they? Before the pyramids.
They did. I mean, it's got to be aliens.
Across
What
continents.
else could it be?
Yeah.
Like, seriously. No one lived in a hole.
That's the one. I think that's the one era I'd want to go back to and just look, just watch what the fuck happened.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to. And my other belief is that planet Earth is just a tiny, tiny, tiny little molecule.
No, don't tell me that. It spins me out.
You know, we could be a chair. We could be a molecule in a chair. But if that chair breaks, we're fucked. We're gone. We're just goodbye. Over.
Apparently, if the Earth was to die or get sucked into the sun, we'd have no idea, and we would just all just shrink into this tiny little thing, and then poof, gone. But we don't know if we're actually gone. We could just be really, really small.
Oh wow.
Mate.
sounds kinky.
Yeah. Where do you put it?
Yeah.
What's your biggest regret in your line of work? Complete mood changer.
Biggest regret in my line of work. Thing is, I try to live my life with no regrets. That's the thing. I try to live each day like it's my last so that I don't regret anything. Because regrets turn into irritation, frustration, anger, and ultimately regrets set you back.
Mm-hmm.
So to be quite honest, I don't think I regret anything. Like, I think that if we do, it's the start of a toxic behavior that's only going to set us back.
Yeah.
So if you do have regrets, solve them immediately. Like, granted, I know if someone's passed away who you wanted to talk to and you were never able to have that conversation, you may have regret, but you have to come to peace with yourself.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I think that's really important. Like, allow your heart and mind and soul to come together. And I don't mean this in some kind of hippie Buddha, kind of way. Like, just look after yourself. Don't put yourself through pain. It goes back to something that I said at the very beginning of this podcast. The only person who has the authority to make you feel a certain way is yourself. So snap the fuck out of it and be the one to make that change. Like, just be at one with yourself. Be happy with who you are. Love yourself. And if you don't, make the changes to make that happen.
I think I found the soundbite. Yeah. Amazing. Cool. 2 more for this round. So if you could tell your younger self one thing, what would it be?
it would be to embrace exactly who I am. When I was a kid and my Tourette's came out, it would be to embrace exactly who you are, have no regrets, know that life will be okay, know that it's okay to make these noises and do these things, that life isn't always going to be like this, but believe in who you are. Because this was a time in my life where everyone else told me I would fail at life, that I should claim benefits. I'd never drive. I'd never be able to be in the police force, which is what I wanted to do. Like all the ambitions and hopes and dreams I had were not there because I had to be realistic. That was the one thing I heard in my childhood. You have to be realistic. But, I look at myself now, having achieved what I've achieved, and there's a long way to go, a long, long, long way to go. But you think, my God, like all those people telling me that when I was a kid, how wrong they were. And what's even more sad is other kids like me who were going through other things, but at the same time who were told the same thing. What are they doing now?
Yeah.
Are they sitting at home claiming benefits, not enjoying their life, wasting away, smoking every day, drinking every day? Like what's happened to them because of how they were treated?
Yeah.
So it would be love yourself, embrace yourself, and believe in who you are.
You don't have to sit below someone else's glass ceiling.
Amen.
Cool. All right, brilliant. Now, obviously, you're a big person within the drinks industry. Your knowledge is, we've already seen some of your knowledge come out. So, it's a really, really great locker of experience I want to delve into now. I want to look at some of your alcohol advice, your quick tips, quick hacks around alcohol selection, alcohol consumption, or whatever, right? So, you mentioned before about wine. Okay? So, a lot of people might feel overwhelmed or intimidated by wine or the wine industry. What should people look out for when buying a bottle of wine from the supermarket?
So I always tell people, when you go to the supermarket and you look at that bottle of wine, don't just make your decision based on the label. It's like when you're dating someone. There could be someone who looks 10 out of 10, but their personality is shit and they're a total asshole. Could be the same with a bottle of wine. So always pick it up, turn it around, look at the tasting notes. Is it lower alcohol? Is it higher alcohol? Has it got blackberries in it? Raspberries? Has it got cherries, chocolate, gooseberry, strawberry, pineapple, whatever it might be? What do you tend to like? Look for that in the wine. If you want to take things a step further, download an app. There's an app called Vivino. I worked with them for years as a global ambassador. I think that single-handedly changed the way that wine is interacted within the world.
I love that app.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
You take a picture of a bottle of wine. It tells you all the tasting notes you need to know based on what other people have said. But even more than that, it gives you a point score rank out of 5. And it'll tell you how much you might like it based on everything that you've uploaded in the past. So every time you drink that wine, you can do your own tasting notes. So it's smart. Its algorithm builds a wine profile for you. So that's probably one of the best ways. Go in, snap a picture of it. It'll tell you, based on all this data, whether or not you're going to like it. But ultimately, do also take risks. Like, do every now and again pick up a bottle of wine that you have no idea what it tastes like, just to try it and just to see what it's like. And it might be that you don't like it, and you may think, oh, I've wasted my money, but you haven't, because you're probably going to buy something similar at some point later down the road in your life. What you know now is that you don't like it from a particular region, or you prefer this element about it, but maybe not this. And the other thing is, if you're eating certain food, like, I think that a lot of wines are fairly versatile. I think that you can drink red wine with fish. I think you can drink white wine with meat. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's more about the wine that you like, actually drinking versus pairing it with food. When you're in a restaurant, that's kind of what they do there. That's why you've got someone's added expertise. But if you're just going home at the end of the night, get a wine that makes you feel good because you enjoy the taste of it. That's the most important thing.
So what are 3 cocktails everyone should have in their locker?
Okay, so a margarita, but I want you to absolutely fuck off the salt rim. That's not happening.
Awful.
Goodbye, right?
Awful.
And second of all, I want you to have some kind of syrup in there, your favorite flavor. So peach, mango, raspberry, strawberry, whatever it might be, right? Always have that handy, because it's great to have a margarita. Fantastic, perfect. But when you have people coming over, you want to add it up a notch. You want to impress them. I prefer mango and peach because I think it just works well with tequila. But always have that and use a tiny bit of syrup in your recipe to make things stand out. So that's number 1. Number 2 is a sidecar. Cognac is so underrated. It's so underrated. Like, people should always have cognac in their household. I guarantee you, if I put a sidecar cocktail in front of you, you'll fall in love with it. Even if you say that you don't like cognac, whiskey, whatever that might be, because it's such an approachable cocktail. And it's a cocktail that people easily do fall in love with. And number 3, always have a lower alcohol spirit or a non-alcohol spirit in your house, because we don't just constantly want to drink all the time. It's not good for us to constantly drink all the time. So moderation is key, and source something that you like the taste of. Don't just have something there for shits and giggles because. Find something that you're passionate about and utilize that. Have that during the week, like explore it, get different tonics with it, put a little bit of bitters in there. You know, whatever it's going to be, just try it out. So they're the 3 things that I would say you always need to have in your household.
Can you decode the following alcohol myth for me?
God, here we go.
Okay. More ice in your glass means more watered down your drink will become.
So yeah, that's false. So basically, if you have a gin and tonic, for example, or a highball, if you got a little bit of ice in there, that ice will melt and then your drink becomes more watered down because there's less, you know, the temperature is warming faster because there's less ice in there. If you fill the glass to the very top with ice and then add your liquid in, it stays cooler for longer. And so it will be much, much, much less watered down, because that ice is keeping your drink cooler. So whenever you have a drink with ice in it, always fill up to the top. And if you're on an aeroplane or a train or whatever, and they give you gin and tonic and give you like 2 pieces of ice, ask for more. Always ask for more.
And the next myth is mixing your drinks makes your hangovers worse.
No, that's absolute bollocks. So it all has to do with the actual concentration of alcohol, the ABV, the alcohol that is within the drink, and the blood level, the alcohol blood level as well. So if you drink more, that will be higher. If you drink less, it will be lower. It doesn't matter if you mix grape with grain or anything in between. It's all to do with the amount of alcohol in your system.
Cool. Okay, great. Now, the final thing that we try to do on the podcast is we always end with a quote. Right, and we always ask to bring a quote with you which you would want to pass on to someone else. So it could be something that you've heard before, you've always had with you, you've heard recently, but more importantly, it's more around someone would say, Aidy used to always say to me, blah.
Yep. So this is a quote that I use quite often, and it's quite a meaningful quote to me. So my first ever boyfriend, like proper boyfriend, back in the day, who I, fell head over heels in love with, and we had this really kind of up and down rocky relationship here, there, and everywhere. And now my ex-boyfriend is now a woman, a very successful woman. She transitioned, she's transgender, she's doing a fantastic job. In a previous life when we were boyfriends, at the time, he had gone to a kids camp because, life was tough growing up. There was a lot of things going on. And I remember at the time, he told me a quote when we were going out. And that quote was, "There's strength in the struggle." And that is something that has kept with me throughout my life. And sure, we had this kind of rocky relationship. There was a lot going on. But I don't think now, she probably doesn't even realize just how much that quote meant to me at the time and how it's lived on with me throughout all this time. And it takes me back to my own life when I think about growing up with Tourette's. I think about all people in the world who are growing up, who are going through something, whatever the hardship, whatever the challenges. What we need to realize is that for every negative thing, for every hard thing, for every challenge, there is a beautiful learning in disguise. And that learning will tell us so much more about ourselves than we ever thought imaginable. And that's why we leave these situations with, as I alluded to earlier, more emotional intelligence, more empathy, more cultural awareness. We look at the world in a different light that helps us navigate our journey, and that leads us to happiness. So all of that encompassed in one quote is just simply, there's strength in the struggle.
Aidy, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a great session for me, hopefully for you too. I've learnt a lot, I've felt a lot, I've laughed a lot. I've really enjoyed having you on, so thank you again for coming on.
My absolute pleasure. Session complete.
Yes, exactly. So please do follow the podcast, subscribe, depending on which platform you're on, and leave a review or a comment if you found this helpful, enjoyable, or if you know someone who would find this valuable, please do share. See you next time. Hey guys, if you enjoyed today's podcast, please give us a like, rate our show 5 stars, or go ahead and subscribe so you're the first to know when we release another episode like this. And if you know anyone who might like this too, be sure to share this episode with them so they can enjoy it as well. We're a new podcast, so your support is really appreciated.